exciting TechFest. It has definitely yesterday delivered above what I expected. So thank you very much to all the speakers that participated, to everyone that made their comments on the sides, etc. It was really great. As always, thank you to our sponsors. You saw all their names on there in the slides. Thank you very much for them for making this possible. It's only with sponsorships that we can host things like this and be able to share the knowledge of all of these experts in the industry with each other. So thank you very much for that. It was a fantastic day yesterday in terms of the sessions. I was just saying to the panelists this morning that who thought that a subject like data can become such a fascinating and interesting and lively discussion as we had yesterday. And that notwithstanding, just the whole idea of looking at the journey of digitization. And for me, that the biggest picture there, or the takeout that I got, was the fact that this is not an end and a beginning and an end issue. This is a continuous journey that we are on, and it's just got different facets, it's got different angles, and so it's just, this conversation can carry on forever. Thanks also to our sponsors for the cocktail function last night. If you weren't there, you missed out. We were scheduled to leave at 7:30. The place was going to close, and we ended up leaving only at 9, and people had incredibly good discussions. It was a very lively event. So make sure that next year you register for the cocktail function. It's purely a networking thing. I think I spoke for about 1 sentence, and that was about it. So make sure that you are there. Again, thanks to everybody that did attend last night. So this morning, same thing as yesterday, we've got 3 sessions of 90 minutes each. We're going to have a break at 12 o'clock. We're starting off this morning with our first session. And this is an interesting one because it's not just about innovating fancy products and creating these amazing products, but it's about, again, the journey as to how do you facilitate that product end to end on your systems? How do you keep in mind that everybody that touches that product on its journey to delivering to a client? So we've got Hanno van Aarde, the CEO of Briisk. He's going to talk about insurance business workflow automation. Sounds very complicated, but the fact is it's just all about ensuring that you optimize every bit of that journey of a product. And he's going to focus a little bit on empowering intermediaries. We brought in Fred de Beer, and I told Fred earlier on, I tried to find which of his many titles, etc., I would introduce him with, and at the end I came to the conclusion I must just call him a serial local and global entrepreneur in this financial services space. So Fred, welcome, and thank you very much for that. And then we've got Stephen Motseki. He also a sort of experienced player in the insurance industry, coming more from the UMA side to distribution side at Quantum Leap Risk Management. So Stephen, thank you also to you for joining us today.
Thank you.
So I'm going to hand over to Hanno to take us through this. And as always, guys, please feel free to put your comments on the side so that we can see if there's anything that we have to touch on that you found interesting. So thank you, Hanno, over to you.
Thank you, Tony, and welcome to everyone that's joined today, and thank you to all of the other sponsors that have made this event possible. Okay, thanks everybody. Let me jump straight in. So I'll just take you through, Briisk. We're a technology company, cloud-based solution, and we really have focused a lot of our efforts over the last few years around distribution. But what we've found as well is that a lot of the sort of automation that people are looking for does stretch right across the value chain. And, going straight into the first slide is that when we look at business process automation and using technology to do that, you have to go back to all of the legislation that actually is at the heart of it all. Now the FASE Act is familiar to everybody in the insurance industry, but that act is also informed by the ICT Act, which is the Information and Communication Technology Act. You've also got POPIA, Protection of Personal Information Act. You've got the Financial Intelligence Center Act, FICA Act, and then you've got data security regulation as well. So when you look at this the sort of empowering an intermediary service or an intermediary with technology, you have to actually take all of that into account. You can't just look at the FASE Act, but the FASE Act is quite informative in just sort of highlighting the touch points of what we're trying to achieve. So if we just quickly glance through this, it's we all know this act, but sometimes it's good to revisit it and to actually look at what do we have to, from a technology perspective, what are we trying to do? So if you can look at the 3A and 3B sections, what is defined as an intermediary service? We can just quickly read through it. Is point A is the result of which that a client may enter into, offers to enter into, or enters into a transaction in respect of a financial product with a product supplier. So that's a short sentence, but a lot of things go into that, with a view of, and I think this becomes a bit more revealing, buying, selling, otherwise dealing in discretionary, non-discretionary, managing, administering, keeping safe. There it's about data, maintaining, or servicing a financial product purchased by a client from a product supplier, or in which the client has invested. And then it gets more complicated, collecting or accounting of premiums or monies payable by the client to the product supplier, and then receiving, submitting, or processing the claims of a client against a product supplier. So I think what I really wanted to just highlight here was that you can see it touches across the value chain of insurance. So for me, the intermediaries are really the glue that link all the business processes together, and how do we as a technology company can assist them. And so it's important to define who am I as an intermediary, whether I'm assisting a client from a product perspective and onboarding, or I'm in the administrative side, or I'm in the claim side. Where do I fit into that value chain? What are my roles and responsibilities? And at the end of the day, as a business, when we engage a client, it's really to understand what is their strategy, number one, but how can we use technology in the execution of that strategy, and what are they really trying to focus on? So if we go to the next slide, it's just these sort of images that we put together is really just to highlight again, between where are all of these interfaces that we are looking to automate, provide business automation. And you can see that, it starts with products. And I just want to pause on products quickly, because the insurance industry is faced with one of, the biggest challenges, I believe, in the insurance industry relative to other financial services, but maybe investment is in the same, is that products, there's mass customization of products. So we it's not just a life insurance product or a motor product. It's got lots of customization of these products, where we add in other levels of cover, we add in value-added products, etc. So, products, this customization of products leads to, if I add one data field to a product, it leads to that workflow, being impacted. Dealing with distribution, everybody involved in that process, engaging with customers, getting to, get policies on the books, getting information out of all of it, going into the policy administration process, collections, claims, and having the ability to manage workflows right across all of that. So these are the challenges that we as technology companies have to address, and we have to be flexible because of this whole customization that is needed. Every intermediary, everybody providing a service, is providing something unique, and it's not just a sort of it's not a whilst we can say life insurance itself is maybe a commodity, the actual service and the way we deliver the service is not commoditized at all. It's very customized. So I'm just going to take an example here of how we look at it when we really engage with the client. So this is just a very simple example. Travel insurance, everyone knows the product. The product itself, travel insurance, is not such a simple product. It's got life insurance in it. It's got health insurance in it. It's got short-term insurance in it. So from a product perspective, it's actually quite a complex composite product. But what makes it easy to distribute, it's a single premium. But what we do is for a client, when we engage a client, is to say, what is the result that you're trying to achieve? What is your strategy? How are you going to address it? And again, Briisk's focus has largely been around the enablement of distribution. So the intermediaries that are working, from the UMA towards the end customer. But we've done a lot of the integration into sort of the existing, policy administration system. So our focus here is really to say to the client, what's your strategy? So this client, an example, was looking to increase sales. They wanted to have a digital process of onboarding. They wanted to make sure that the site itself, loaded in a few milliseconds. This was all based on their strategy of implementing a digital, process using, social media and other digital media buying strategies to generate leads, etc. So these are the how we approached it, and then you sit and you look at the product, and then you put together the workflow for that, and then we have to build it on the platform for them, and the way we allow them to do it themselves. It's also got to be cost effective. So keeping in mind that we want to make it as easy as possible for somebody to onboard a product and get their interface implemented on the platform. So we allow you as an intermediary that is involved in delivering the service to do a lot of that work yourself, and we support with that. So these are just an example of how we address it, and that coming back to the Act, that deals with B1 and B3 as an example of where what you see in front of you has resulted in us building that out. So these are things that we, how we approach it, really trying to look at what's the end result from a business process automation perspective, and allowing you actually to measure, these interfaces that you have. So it's a customer interface. So for example, take this product, there's an interface with the end customer. There's an interface with the policy coming onto a CRM system. There's an interface with that data being transferred into the insurance company's central reservation system. There's an interface with a payment platform so that people can pay immediately. There's an interface with the policy administration where the policy gets issued in real time. So these are the areas that we look at from a business process automation perspective. Are there any questions at this point in time or comments?
Just on my side. So I just want to add that I think because we are API enabled as Briisk, we can extend this to actually being a fully mobile device. So it can be a mobile app as well, because it doesn't just have to be as just a mobile sort of web-based application. It can just be a fully fledged sort of capability where you have digital omni-channel. So you can have the digital, I mean, what you call the web-based online distribution channel, and then you can have the app under, let's use TravelSave. TravelSave can actually extend this to an app and have this entire sort of service stack on a mobile app.
Yeah, correct. So for the strategy, the business strategy might, as you say, Stephen, be to extend it to an omni-channel approach. And so when you do the business process automation, you've got to be able to extend your service beyond just a web app.
I know. Maybe I can just ask. There's a question here from somebody, Jacques Ellis, on the, and I thought it would be appropriate time to put that to you. He just asked you, further to the FISE Act and referring to intermediary service, can a program or any form of technology be registered as a representative or intermediary? Interesting question. If there's no human intervention, is this required in the FSCA?
Exactly. Now, this is actually something that I've come across quite often, and because there's the Act talks a lot about. I mean, if you look at the Intermediary Services Act, it talks about a person. It doesn't talk about technology. It doesn't say the system is doing this and the system is doing. It's about what the people are doing. We're very cognizant of the fact that that intermediaries play a significant role and will continue to play a significant role in the insurance industry, for a very, very forever. We don't see that ever being something that technology replaces. What we see is that technology is an enabler. It's an enabler for you to be, more efficient. And I think when you look at, because this value chain of insurance is broken up, from reinsurance to insurance companies, underwriting management companies, brokers, agents, in customers. You can imagine at each of these interfaces, there's this legislation comes into play. So in other words, whether it's phase or, ICT or POPIA or FICA, etc., your business process ideally, runs across everything. But regulation is saying that there needs to be hard stops between it. There needs to be data segregation. You can't just, insurance companies, UMAs can't just have access to all of the customer data of a broker. I mean, it's not compliant. So when you do this process automation, you have to take all of that into account. And when you put a process in place, you've got to ask yourself the question: how does it comply with legislation? And and that is some of the areas that I think the insurance industry will evolve to work closely with regulators, because if we want, it depends on what our strategy is. Again, if we want to ensure the mass market, at a the entry at the base of the pyramid, giving individual advice is maybe not feasible from a cost perspective. So then we've got to ask ourselves, can we use technology, and can the technology be implemented in a compliant way? And I think these are the areas that we are challenged with on a daily basis. And again, the complexity that's added to this is that products, it's not just a single product, it's customization of all of these products. So this travel product is slightly different to another travel product. I think there's 20 different or 30 different travel products in the South African market. So, and tomorrow someone identifies a new gap in the travel industry where there's a risk, and a new risk gets covered through a new product. And each of these things we have to look at and provide technology to do that without having to rebuild and from scratch every time. So, we'll try and do it efficiently from a tech perspective, making things configurable, but making everything 100% configurable also is a challenge to a technology company, because it's very expensive to develop that kind of complete configurability, down to a very detailed level. Okay, can I continue? No more questions. So, we look at our, what we've done as a business, we said we're going to focus on an industry specific functionality. We're going to really look at the insurance industry. We see that it's one industry that has lagged behind, other industries in the digital world, and we see opportunities there. And the one that we focus on is the automation across the different business processes. So, just going through these points, when you actually put down a solution, none of our solutions are just are similar. So whilst we provide a building block platform, everybody, when they put their product down and their unique product set, actually is building their own, we call it a platform because it's unique. It has unique workflows in it, has unique customer journeys on it, has unique ways of using data, transferring data, etc. So each of our clients that applies intermediary services actually is customizing, and we have to provide technology to allow you to do that, because it's, at the end of the day, it's you're selling a financial services, between people, technology supporting, and everybody has, each of us has our own unique way of doing that. So we really look at supporting intermediaries in that journey of theirs, and, trying not to be everything to everybody. We focus a lot on the distribution element, but we understand that, there is, a full value chain where the intermediaries are actually involved, and in different ways and forms, and we evolve our technology along the needs of our clients. All right, so these are just a few points. Maybe just point, the second one from the bottom is really, intermediaries can leverage specialized features and capabilities to streamline their operations and improve efficiency. So what we do, as well as from a technical perspective, every time we add a new feature or a new function, that becomes available to all of our intermediaries. So it allows them to also improve their processes with every iteration that we undergo. And when we make our solution available, we make it in its entirety, available. We don't limit functions, etc. It's really everything is available, and as it evolves, you get access to a greater feature set.
Hanno, there's another question from Yaku Furi.
Yes, Yaku.
His question is, which short-term insurance products does your system cater for? Commercial, personal, farmer, engineering, body corporate, etc.
Yeah, so we've made the system product agnostic. So we do commercial, we do short-term, we do general insurance, we do life insurance, savings products. So the way we've configured the platform or developed it, it's product agnostic. It's really looking at what is the product, what are the features, and how do we enable those intermediary services. So product, and we can use, so we haven't had, so there's no limitation at this point in product. In fact, we've built it to be broader than just insurance products. So we've seen, with this customization, people are starting to package insurance products differently. They're adding in, third-party services, value-added products. They are trying to almost develop composite ways of dealing with risk from clients. So, we enable, a very broad product range, and to the point that I don't think we are limited to any products at this point in time. Where our limitations would come in is if we get into very highly advice-driven products. So for that, Briisk is not geared currently. We haven't really engaged with high advice products at this point in time.
No, if I may ask, there's a bit more general question, but got a good technology question that's very relevant based on what we discussed yesterday as well. It's Wimpy van der Merwe just asked, what are the main data challenges to create a single customer view across all channels? And client has got different channels and insurance processes or touch points. Why do so many insurance companies still send blank claim forms in PDF?
Yeah. So I think it's, for us, it's about the way we look at it to make it, the ideal scenario, Tony, the way, in my mind is if there's one data set and everybody can work off it. In other words, it's very much, aligned to that blockchain thinking, where you have one set of data, but everyone in the value chain can actually reference the data, and they have a different business process on the data, and they have there's permissions and roles and responsibilities of what you can do with that data. And once you can have one set of data and you can apply the necessary regulations and legislations and acts around that, it enables you to start thinking about the single view, because you don't have to reference lots of databases. But what we've done is to also create what we call a customer key. So on our database, on our data structure, we create a unique identifier, and we link that identifier or map it or integrate it to third-party databases, be that a CRM database where your customer information sits, or be it a different a product database or policy database where there's existing policies, so that when you engage a customer, you can actually use a unique key to reference other databases, and then you make it feel like it's a singular customer view. Because even just take any insurance company, many of them have a life life license or a general insurance license, commercial license, etc. And products are all sitting maybe in different business systems at the back. How do you unify it? How can you reference these databases in a compliant way and make the information visible to the intermediary that's actually got to use this data in their day-to-day tasks? And that's how we've dealt with it, through creating this very flexible, unique way of referencing different databases, and then unifying it on a single data structure in a compliant way on risk, and then allowing the data to be segregated in a to fit the necessary acts. So if the customer, whoever is engaging the customer, his data can be shared or linked to another data structure, but following the right permissions and approvals, etc.
Hanno, if I can just add to that, because that's a very, very good question. Tony, part of the challenges that we have is that traditional insurers have legacy platforms. And in some instances, these platforms are not capable to create a single view data set. And that requires development into a more modern platform, if you will, to enable that single view for anyone wanting to interact with that data set. I'm not saying all insurers are having these challenges, but that might also be a reason why insurers haven't evolved to the effect where they don't have to send blank PDF forms that needs to be filled out by policyholders.
So I think also I wanted to just touch on that, the whole issue around, having, how can you reuse data so that people don't have to recapture it? And I think we all kind of get, irritated, especially in the FICA world, where you're continuously being FICA'd by everybody that you're engaging with. That over and over, you have to supply this information repetitively, and it's just we all know it's really a waste of time, because your address is your address and your bank details are your bank details, and people aren't generally changing that the whole time. So it's really saying, it's making that sort of business process available across your entire business. So in other words, if there's a FICA process and you've digitized it, that process can be linked into your customer onboarding, or it can be linked into your claims process without having to recapture data. In fact, you can actually populate. I mean, if you take an online, where you're filling a form in online, nothing stops technology to pre-populate that form for you if it knows who you are, and that it's secure. The challenge always with making data freely available is the security around it. But there are ways now, with technology to go through the sort of one-time passwords or single sign-on. There is technology that allows you to make sure that data can be made available across different business processes securely, and that helps bring down the necessity for refilling forms, etc. So really, for us, it's from an intermediary perspective. We see there's really a lot of opportunities for intermediaries that are the sort of glue that stick all the business processes together. But the question is, there's a couple of problem statements that we come across on a regular basis, and I just wanted to take you through them. And and these are kind of that we address on almost all of our implementations. It's the first question really that when you look at this, the challenge of an intermediary that's dealing with lots of different product suppliers, lots of customization of products, is where do I start? So what we find is that intermediaries often struggle with knowing how to begin and in the implementation of a workflow automation. Where do you start? And what we offer as Briisk is a user-friendly platform that with step-by-step guidance to simplify the process of getting started. And that is also looking at your business side. What is the business requirement? I think a lot of technology that we find where we are challenged by our clients is when that business requirement hasn't been defined to a level of detail that makes us efficient in the execution of technology. So the second question that we find is what to do. So what intermediaries, what we say is, the intermediaries that we work with face confusion about which tasks and processes to automate, and that is also what adds to that complexity is I repeat, is product customization, but dealing with all of these different acts and dealing with making sure that it's compliant, because we all know that these Phase Act, the ICT Act, POPIA, FICA, etc., they have to be compliant with. It's not it's something that we nice to do. It's an absolute cornerstone of everything that gets done. So we provide, what we do as Briisk, we offer customizable automation templates and expert support to help the intermediaries identify and automate their most critical workflows. And once they have been through that, then they start seeing opportunities with in their day-to-day business where they can actually add these additional improvements. Problem 3 statement is, what are the hurdles that you have to overcome? And what we see is that there is a challenge in navigating complex technical requirements and integration. So a lot of talk about integration into databases, APIs, applications, cloud computing, etc. So these are things that are also moving quite quickly in terms of how the industry is innovating. We now know, you can see AI starting to also adding to the conversations, and can it actually make a difference? Can it assist us? So these are the things that Briisk handles. So we handle those technical complexities, and we really offer process of seamless integration with existing systems and providing a user-friendly interface. So it's sometimes about not throwing out what you have. People don't, I often, we do a lot of integration work into existing business systems and really add a flexible layer to that to simplify, and that allows us to make the interface with the user a lot more seamless. So even from a intermediary, if they're the client and they are needing us to create a simpler process for them, it really starts with, what is the existing, and can we utilize that and just add some flexibility to it. The problem 4 then really is, what tools do we use? There's a lot of technology out there, and there's some fantastic technical solutions coming, available, and there's continuous innovation around that. So this really is about, we play very open cards with our clients to evaluate different options, both from a cost perspective, from a speed to market perspective, from the ability for you to do it yourself, and then assist in the process. Some of, because for what we don't want to do is to try to be everything for everybody, because then we will not deliver the level of service that we aim to deliver. And we also have our own journey of, as we add functionality, maybe what you need today we don't have, but we know that our journey is such that maybe in 2 years' time we actually fit some of the the needs that our current clients are looking for. So that's we're very clear in what we do, but sometimes execution is really when we really see what's the difference between different technologies. Once you start implementing, it's very difficult sometimes to just evaluate off the cuff. We look at the challenge as well from intermediary perspective. What's the benefit for me? So they need clarity on how workflow automation can benefit their operations and bottom line, and that's has to end up in efficiencies, driving shareholder value, driving profitability, driving everything that you need to make your business a success. So there has to be these tangible benefits, and we have to be able to quantify them and actually show the benefit. So these are all driven down to data. So if we don't have the data, we can't provide the insights. So it's all critically comes down to what the data elements that we're able to add into the workflows. So just coming on to the next slide. So really this is about empowering the intermediaries. So what we provide is like an orchestration layer. We call it the Briisk ITP. I think we've referenced it a few times. And what we see Briisk being able to do is bridge the gap between existing systems, legacy systems, and digitizing insurance practices. So it's a very broad statement, but we find that with every product iteration that we work on, we add functionality, and it allows us to actually address quite a broad range of needs. I think the technological revolution that the industry faces is bringing more and more challenges for intermediaries, but really sometimes we refer to it more of opportunities, but it's selecting what really is going to work for you and what's going to work for your business. We see that digitizing of insurance, the intermediary and the broker will improve efficiencies using technology like what Briisk offers. And, this starts moving the intermediary services to, the question that we had earlier about digital broking and binding. Does the systems start, giving you a seamless process? But what it does, it absolutely does that, but you need to personalize it and you need to make sure it's compliant. So what we see that, what we've seen from this way of working, and where, where our clients embrace this, is that it empowers them to access new markets, it allows them to increase their policy sales, and it allows them to drive greater business growth. sorry, last. All right. So again, just to summarize in the last few slides, coming up for the hour now, is, what do you gain as an intermediary from this? So really for us, it's about the results-driven workflow automation strategies tailored to each intermediary's individual needs. So again, this is not one size fits all at all. That's really, I think, that where we are challenged is to enable that flexibility. But we see as point one that does lead to increased efficiencies when implemented. When you've really understood what your business requirement is, and really business process automations is really, when you do it end to end, you have the biggest result, because you are dealing with efficiencies at each interface. As we see, the value chain of insurance is not just on one area. So you really have to think, right across the process, and then pick where you can make the biggest impact, and over time improve, each step in the process. For us, it's about helping our clients with customer experience. I think customer experience sometimes is more important than anything else. So when customers have great experience, be it the services offered by intermediaries, they never forget it. We all remember good experiences, and it means that we come back to those clients, and we, it gives you an opportunity to upsell and cross-sell. So, focus on customer experience is critical. Making it easy and simple for customers to engage, I think, is where we see great value. The way of sort of digital automation leads you to new customer bases. So you start thinking, can I, if I'm more efficient in what I do, am I able to broaden out my services? Can I reach more customers effectively? Can I add that a new channel to my business? So we see that happening with our clients, and it is a process, but it does open up new opportunities. Point 4 is critical in all of this business process automation, is really accurate data. I think we touched on it earlier, is the single view of customer. It would be fantastic if we could see what products customers have, what they don't have, as they go through their life cycle. They need different levels of cover, etc. We're all aiming for this. It's not that easily achieved, but it does mean, I think, with good quality data and not having to move data between different databases, you can actually get better, accurate records, and you can now, with integration and APIs, etc., which is the sort of language of the insurance industry, is that you can link data structures together and try and create a single view. So there's not necessarily having to have it all on one database, but being able to integrate it and then build the interface that allows you to analyze it.
Hanno, Jaco is asking a question: does it interface with your mail server? In other words, is email sent and received from within the system, so that the record of all communication with the client is kept on his profile?
Yeah, so we can, so the Briisk system at the moment uses a mail server, but we can integrate your mail server into the system, and then that communication will also be, part of the overall workflows. Yeah, so it is possible. So we have in our platform, we have what we call a notification solution, which touches on the distribution element, the premium collection element, claims, and even lead generation. And each of those can be linked to an SMS server or an email server, or if you are using a mobile Android application, a push notification can be pushed through that as well. So it's really it is available, and it's just understanding, the how you want to implement it, but then we can link it to the system. So it can be a external, what we call an external connected service.
Charmaine Pollack is also asking a very good question. Will we have full electronic submission and handling of the smaller claims by AI?
So I think we've heard the words parametric claims handling. So parametric claims handling, which I think is what you're referring to, is where you're using the data that's on the database with the data being supplied by the customer, at the claim stage, and then taking that through a process where the system can actually evaluate the information and let's call it in a step-by-step process, decide that it's actually can almost take it through the different stages of claims, from notification to assessment to settlement to payment, etc. Completely end to end without any human intervention. Technically, I can say it's possible. We have never been involved in a project like that up to this point, but we have been involved in where the data, is completely, before it goes, what we focused on is making sure that the data quality before it goes into an assessment process or settlement process is 100% validated, verified. So it actually then improves the manual, claims handling, and improves the efficiencies that you have there. But we spent from the workflow automation perspective and validation of data coming in, we make sure that you have it at a very high quality, standard, or almost 100% accuracy before you have to process it. So that's where we have seen, if you now had to go to sort of parametric claims, then it is going to rely on that data being 100% accurate. Are there any more questions, Fred?
No, that was the last question. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think point 5, customizable product digitization. I think, I can't overemphasize enough that the insurance industry is faced by mass customization, which makes it very unique in terms of the financial services side of things generally, and therefore one needs really a lot of flexibility to deal with this, and that all of that product customization leads to an impact on your workflows. But if you embrace it and you become competent at it, it can give you a competitive advantage, because it opens up new opportunities of how you work, how you develop your business, and the kind of markets that you are accessing. For us, it's making sure that in this value chain that you have control over each step in the workflow. So whether you want to fully automate it, or whether you want to have manual steps and you want to add a service level to each of that, to each, let's call it each step, we provide that so that you can sometimes just evolve your workflow, and when you've seen that it's running smoothly, you can move it from where you have a manual intervention to actually adding complete automation to it, so then it runs straight through. So those are the things that we look at, but it's a sequential process. It's not just coming in and everything is going to run completely automatically. That doesn't really happen. It's about learning, making sure that the processes are worked on and refined to a point where you are comfortable to make it more automated.
Hanno, maybe just to ask you, we did a broker survey early on in the year, and something that came out quite strongly there with brokers was that, intermediaries was that the prohibitive factor is the time that it takes to implement these things and the cost involved. How do you overcome that?
So I think for what we've done is to, as I mentioned, this product customization is the challenge, because brokers and intermediaries that are offering these services are wanting to have their unique stamp on that. So what we do is we provide templates. We say, okay, here's a template. It's got, let's call it 80 to 90% of what we think you're going to need, and there's 10% that you need to customize. And we've created it in a way that that if you've been through a process with us once, that most of our intermediaries are able to do a lot of that work themselves, so that speeds it up. Because if they're not doing it, then they're asking us to do it. And if we are under capacity constraints, that slows down the whole process. So we are seeing that more of our clients are adding the skills within their own organizations. And it's not complicated. It's not like you need coding, people that can do very detailed coding. It's really people that are business process orientated, and can work on a system, become competent on a system, whether it's a platform like Briisk, or whether it is a CRM system like Salesforce, or whatever you have. You need a very good jockey. You can have a thoroughbred horse, but if you don't have a good jockey, you're not going to win the race. And I think, to me, to overcome that, I think brokers can form groups of brokers that are distributing to a similar client network, and if they pool their resources, they should be able to bring down the costs and get these solutions working for them.
Hanno, Peter van der Merwe asks a very good question. What is Briisk's digital transformation strategy to accommodate the next generation or next wave of insurance products to accommodate the millennials and Gen Zs? As from 2030, they will make up 75% of the economy. The expectations of products and experiences will be very different from the baby boomer Gen Y era.
Yeah.
So, Peter, I would just, as a preamble, mention this, that Briisk is a purely technology-oriented company / platform / instant transaction platform / methodology of how we execute insurance business. We are of the view that as you mentioned, 75%, if we use 75% as the base percentage, then that means that the insurers will have to look very different to their product sets that they offset in the market. And these product sets need to be able to be transacted on modern platforms, and more particularly mobile platforms, because that's where access to these products will be made available. And insurers that do not embrace that technological transformation might find some challenges facing them in the future. That's exactly what we at Briisk want to support with, is that transformation to digitize, as Hanno rightly mentioned earlier in the meeting, to digitize the entire value chain. So that entire value chain has got multiple touch points, and you need to approach those touch points from a technology perspective to make sure that that's how you introduce the product, that's how you market the product, that's how you sell the product and get that onboarding, and that's how you service the product. So in general, just a comment is that the Briisk platform is skewed at making sure that we lead the way in terms of that technology approach to our industry. Hanno, yeah, so I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I can add to that. It's the way I look at it, and the way we sort of respond to that kind of question is to say that if you go back to the roots of what does what does an intermediary do, and what a broker does, or a financial advisor is they've got to assess what the risk is that their client is trying to address. And once you have assessed the risk, you then can say, okay, what measures can I offer you to mitigate that risk? And that's where a product comes in. But if you take a product, products can be prepackaged with a set of covers. Take it down to its core. There's, I have, I'm worried about breaking my leg. Okay, I can offer you accidental injury cover, or I can offer you a hospital cover, or I can offer you an income protection because you might not work for 2 days. So you can see that based on the need that I have, you can offer different types of covers. And the way we see this future is that we have, what we look at is probably dynamic product packaging. So in other words, the solutions that you use have like a basket of risks covers that match this risk, and the risk is coming into the system in the form of data, and it can actually link to that data different cover options. So it almost allows you as a customer to customize your product in real time. And I think for the millennials, that's going to be what's going to be needed, because they're going to be transacting, digitally. They're going to be, you need to catch them at the point where they, where that risk is at highest for them, and where they are looking for, that risk mitigation. And I think that's also going, that's technology side of it. That's how we can address it. But with that comes very strong marketing capabilities and understanding of how you can explain this to the end customer in a very succinct, simple way. Because when I speak, I know I talk details, and probably bores most people, but good marketing people that can bridge that gap between technology and what customers need, and understand what it's how this can be presented, I think will also play a big role. All right, so just to summarize, last slide, is what we look at. Where does digitizing workflows end to end with Briisk really introduces new ways to sell insurance, and what is the impact of that on your business? We believe that it can lead to optimization of office space. More of us are working remotely, but we want to come and meet in networking events. We still want to meet face to face. So it's going to change how our offices look. We know that paperwork is being reduced, but you can't get away from paperwork completely. It's part of all of these different acts. It's where the information is stored, etc. It's how people, sometimes just want to read information. But we know that technology can do what humans do, and it can do a repetitive task better usually and more accurately. So we see that, definitely continuing. But again, with product, customization, as we mentioned, this is not this is continuously looking at different ways of improving administration. We can reduce data capturing. That also leads to an efficiency, especially if we're all working on the same data set across the value chain. The important thing here is to keep data secure. So that's very critical, as we have to be ISO 27001 certified, making sure that data security at different levels in this, or different stages in these interfaces, is handled in a different way. but in a compliant way. The process like this, when you're more efficient, allows you to broaden your customer base. You can use the data to develop insights, to see patterns. That question of how are we going to deal with this future millennial? We know it's happening. We can see it happening. Where can we use technology to offer these customers or cover their risks? Some of them are just not aware of their risks because we're just not getting to all of them. But technology can do that. You can reduce your resourcing costs, your the cost of using of technology. We see technology should become something that gets cheaper and cheaper over time. I think we know that cost of customer acquisition is always critical in our world, and finding ways to optimize that leads to higher revenue. And if you package all of this and you look at these key KPIs as a business, you can remain competitive. And lastly, just wanted to say thank you to everybody. I think the hour is up, and for me, intermediaries, they provide the human intelligence. We hear a lot about AI, and we hear a lot about machine learning and chatbots, etc. But at the end of the day, we see that the sustainability of the intermediary services is critical and making sure that the human engagement is not underestimated, but that you are able to execute the digital strategy. So the digital strategy is a lot broader than just business process automation. It goes into a lot of other aspects of using technology. And just to reiterate from our side, technology is there to be an enabler. Really, we do spend time on understanding business requirements and making sure that technology actually matches that requirement. Because if it doesn't, everyone, feels that technology is just, not really going forward and not really helping. And I think that's, we face that challenge, and we have to, step up to that challenge and look at solving it. So thanks Tony.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I just want to bring in here, thanks very much. It's very interesting in that, and you mentioned a whole bunch of things that needs to be done and should be done and that can be done, etc. Maybe just from Stephen and Fred's perspective, where are intermediaries in the process of actually doing this? Because I do know a lot of intermediaries are embracing technology and are doing that, but usually, as always, you engage and one hears from those ones that are busy with it. But there's everybody needs to sort of be on that journey in some respect. The question is, where are intermediaries on that journey? And we heard yesterday Tavio talk about the digitization strategy and those building blocks, etc. As an industry, are we doing enough to make sure that intermediaries can actually participate in this big change? Because it is it's not just a mind shift, but it takes a lot of skill, effort, money, time, and there's already pressure on intermediaries in terms of their time based on especially compliance and those sort of issues. So my question, where are we with taking intermediaries with us on that journey?
Tony, that's a very good question. I think I would start off with from a regulatory perspective. So my broad view of the local industry, and I'm not by any means professional that I fully understand the local industry because I've been abroad for many years, but just my general sense is that I don't see enough effort by the local industry to really digitize, if you will, the local intermediary. whether that's now a broker or a tied agent working for a particular insurer. And you hear things like to sell one policy where advice has been given is approximately 100 pages of documents that must be completed and so forth. And if that's the case in this modern era, then that really poses a major challenge. So my view would be that, or recommendation rather, would be that insurers need to focus on the digitization of the processes the intermediary is busy with. And that not for all requirements do you require hard copy documents and so forth. You can get away with an electronic document because an electronic document is just as valid in its format as a paper document. You know, our own broker, if Charles needs to update our policy or needs to write a new policy for life cover and so forth, taking my age and so forth into account, there's a whole host of documentation that is required there, from just properly assessing the risk. And my view is that many of that documentation for people not necessarily in my age class can be removed. And I don't think enough has been done to digitize the insurance agent, whether he's a broker or intermediary. And I think there is an opportunity to really differentiate from an insurer perspective. One also needs to keep in mind an insurer, and I don't want to make this a general statement, but an insurer can only digitize to the extent that the policy administration platform allows them to digitize. So that needs to be reviewed as well. And it's the approach of an overall revision of their business processes. And it boils back to the type of product that's been sold. Peter van der Merwe asked a very good question on the chat board in terms of product sets for the future, because in future, all the current millennials are going to transact on their mobile devices, their iPads, their tablets, and so on. That's how they do business. They buy most of the stuff they purchase is online. And insurers need to link into that. Intermediaries need to link into that. And that bridge, I don't think has been bridged, or that gap hasn't been bridged fully yet. There are pockets of excellence I see in the market, but I don't think that gap has been properly bridged yet.
Yeah, look, I mean, we do a lot of work on it. I want to kind of reference some examples because that's, what we see, So when we embarked on our journey, the insurance industry in South Africa is, I think we know it's like second or third most penetrated insurance market in the world. It's got, really a very high level of expertise. Our focus actually, when we started with, our journey was, within the market locally was really around the access to, or providing access to customers that are underinsured or uninsured, and also to make it, access, first they've got to, be able to access financial services. Secondly, they've got to be able to access the right products. And thirdly, we've got to make it fairly simple for them because, they don't necessarily have access to a financial advisor. We do a lot of work in India at the moment. And that's just, what I wanted to just share is that the Indian regulators actually, in my opinion, brought in very interesting legislation and regulations that actually helps to address what Fred is saying, is to help the digitization process, to assist the intermediaries, because even in that country, there's this, the access to the market, to the broad market, and it's a huge country, is still done through a huge networks of intermediaries and offering the services. And there you have to do it very cost effectively because it's a large parts of that population are very have very low incomes that they live on. But I heard an astounding stat the other day. I think even in South Africa, there's a large population that's living on $3 or $5 per day. We don't realize it, but within our own country, there's a huge population that is living with very low income levels, and they also need financial services. So, I think that digitization is very important. It's around your strategy. I'm not, but so that's where we've done a lot of our work. But we are also seeing that that sometimes it's just being able to engage your customers on a more frequent basis. That whole concept of customer communication, and how do you do it? When you've got a CRM system and you've got a broker system, and you've got 5 different systems that you've got to capture policies onto the whole time. It's really making the industry very difficult for intermediaries when they have to deal with all of this recapturing of information. So so from my perspective is that's where I think areas that one can address. I think there's really a great there's big opportunities. There are challenges, but I see them as opportunities. And I think with the with education and with a new let's call it the young people coming out of universities, etc., coming into the financial services industry, getting them into these digital projects, getting them to work with the technologies, getting them to work with the products, etc., will also lead to adding the necessary efficiencies that intermediaries need, because the technology is moving at quite a pace, and we even, as I said, we get challenged continuously by our clients to step up to that that fast evolution that's taking place. So it's really focus. I love that that one TV ad, that rugby TV ad, that says what it's focus, and then it's, can't remember the other word, but what we see is it's about execution. You've got to be able to execute your strategy. You've got to implement it, and you can't do everything. You've got to pick your area that you're going to make an impact, and then you've got to execute it, and you get and work with the people that can deliver that result for you. And that, I think, is one step at a time. It's not, you can't solve this problem overnight. It's one thing at a time.
Yeah, because we can easily have a challenge where the companies with the big pockets can sort of almost, with the fast pace of technology, etc., innovate faster than what the intermediated environment can keep up with, based on the fact that the more technology is involved, the more the intermediaries will have to involve technology as well.
Yeah,
so
I fully agree with you, Tony. And I think if we have a discussion with the regulator will support a technological transformation strategy for the insurance industry. I cannot see that they will oppose that. And the question almost begs, Tony, do we still need paper to transact an insurance policy? And I want to be as bold as to say, no, we don't.
Yeah.
Because if the courts allow an electronic document to be submitted as evidence, surely the insurance industry can also do that. So so I don't want to make a statement on behalf of the industry, but that is a serious question that requires attention. And if you can digitize the intermediary, I think that will be a huge step in the right direction. Looking for ways to cut away all the non-value added activities that really box them down and rob them of their precious time to interact with clients and sourcing new clients, and not having this administrative burden that just pulls them down. But it goes back to the product set. I acknowledge that there are certain very complex products, such as investment products, that do require a different level of interaction. But even there, the question begs, how can technology further support and enhance and improve that operating process?
Because my challenge is we've got such a hybrid system at the moment where you will interact here and it will be highly digitized. And then you will interact in a different place, sometimes with the same company, and it will be completely paper-based. I mean, I recently had a specific example, a personal example, where during an application process for a very specialized product, I had to courier the application form that I had signed back to the company. There was no other way for me to complete the application but to fill in this thing that they have provided me and courier it to them. They would not accept it in any other way, you know.
Yeah, and part of that, part of why you are exposed to that is the notion of the product. The product has been developed to the extent where it requires certain operational brick and mortar infrastructure to service that product. And we are saying, no, technology wants to purposefully ignore that and bring a operating platform, operating methodology to the table where you can seamless interact with the prospective client, whether that's a retail client or insurance and so forth. And it seems that insurers have not moved to the stage where they see insurance as just as another product that the online consumer is purchasing. And make that simple. Take the complexity out of the matter.
Yeah, because the thing is, once you've gone in a certain route in terms of technology, and a very simple example is you can't expect somebody to fax you something anymore because most people have recycled their fax machines.
Yeah, absolutely.
So something that used to be very common, all of a sudden now, if you ask somebody to fax you something, they need to find out where can they find a fax machine. You know, so it's a very basic example, but the fact is you can't have these hybrid systems anymore.
Thanks to platforms like Briisk, you can have, it's almost like a homogeneous experience. So that integration with new age technology like Briisk and the legacy systems to try and automate as much as you possibly can. And I think that would be the most pragmatic way that insurers, large insurers would go, so that you don't have a break in the process, like you mentioned, Tony, where certain parts of it is automated and then certain components are not automated altogether. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And that means that the insurers need to ensure that intermediaries can go with them on that journey, because otherwise that's where the break in the whole technological evolution will be.
Well said, Tony. That's exactly what needs to happen, you know, and that's why I'm sort of like punting the idea that the intermediary needs to be digitized, you know. So in other words, how can you empower the intermediary to use technology to make a better presentation, to have a greater success rate with regards to sales, to have a better approach to the policyholder with regards to servicing matters. And that's part of what the focus should be.
Yeah.
It is I mean, Tony, just again, you know, the legislation in India, the regulators' legislation is geared around putting the policy administration into the point of sale. So in other words, where that intermediary is engaging, he has all the tools that he needs. And you know, what breaks down is when you have to continuously, you know, go back into, I mean, an email email to me is a legacy way of communication. You know, it's you know, one email after another email after another email. It's not a good tool for communication. Exactly. So it's fully digital, and we can all get onto Gmail and that. But email is, in my opinion, is not the right business process for what we're talking about here. You know, you need, in that point of engagement, you need the tools, as Fred said, that supports the intermediary. And if you're going back to the legislation, you know, if you look at those few words that's in the Phase Act, there's a lot that has to be done to make it efficient for the, a lot of technology needs to still be made available, which I think it probably, lots of it is, but it's not easily accessible, for the intermediary.
Yeah, Garth Hollands here on the chat has mentioned a very valid point. He says a lot of electronic documents have an authentication certificate and can trace back to an easy, for example, sign easy and so forth. So there are all those security certificates, and that level of technology is very advanced. It's much more advanced, in fact, than paper. Paper can be hijacked. At my days at Old Mutual, you won't believe how many checks are stolen by syndicates. Paper, and then our insistence to still issue checks and so forth, so it's the same analogy that comes to the table.
At this fascinating stage of the conversation, I have to cut you off, Hanno. Thank you very much. Fred and Stephen, thanks for your input. It was a great discussion. Definitely
Thanks,
something.
Tony.
My pleasure. No. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you. And all the best and good day for everyone further. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was great.
Okay.